So for my film specialisms, I was doing a lighting installation. It was going to recreate the installation created by H.C. Gillian. I still can't pronounce the name. And basically, it was the 50-foot squares frames that were lit by a light on the ceiling. And the way it was lit, it made it look as though the frames were getting bigger when in fact they were all the exact same size. To do this, I began by cutting out cardboard and testing out in my bedroom to see possible ways in which I could light that. But then I came to the realization that HD's frames were hung from the ceiling. So what I did then was I then suspended them using poles from a gazebo. So once I'd worked that out, I then went out and bought proper frames, made a bigger gazebo, and created it in my living room to see if the gazebo could hold up the frames. And then after that, I then brought it into the lighting studio, hung them up. To do the light, I realised I couldn't quite suspend them from the ceiling of the film studio. So what I did instead was I put lights onto a track and dolly underneath the frames and lit it from below. So as you can see in this slide, I did the lighting from various different angles. So I did straight across, left to right, then up and down on the floor. That doesn't make sense, but yeah. And then diagonally as well. So all those like on the floor shining up. And this is what it came out like. So the first bit's his version, and then the second bit's my version. If I was to do this again, I would set it up so that people could actually see it in person rather than on film, because that's how, well, initially that's how his work was shown. It was like an art exhibition rather than a film, and I think showing it on here, the film doesn't quite do it as much justice as it could do, because the light's quite dark on film, but in person it looked really, really cool. Probably would have used a brighter light for filming purposes, because as I said, it was quite dark, so you can't really see the effect as well, but in person it worked really well. And maybe if I had more time and a bit more money, I'd probably find a way to rig it so the lights were above, instead of below, so it was very much the same as his. And I probably would have done it in a corner. When I did it, it was like in the middle of the room, so I could only light the frames. But if I'd done it like in the corner of the room, I could have maybe played around with the lighting a bit more and seen what it would have done to light it, so you could see like the shadows on the wall as well as just onto the frames. What I've learned from this, you need more than two people to put up a gazebo. Yeah, because when me and Abby were doing it, it just kept falling apart. And I think James popped in and we were like, can you just please help us move it? So yeah, I'd probably have more people help set up. Making the little version helped because it helped me wrap my mind around how I was actually going to construct this when I got into the lighting studio, as opposed to trying to wing it on the day. It does look better in person, so I definitely think that I would build it again and bring people in so you could actually see it, because that's how the original exhibition was made to be seen. So I think that would have been more productive, and more demonstrative, if that's a word, for people to see. I think that lighting is more about trying to mimic reality, and I think that's what I did with this project. It was, instead of trying to do 3-point lighting or various type of lighting techniques that I kind of do already know, I thought I'd experiment with something slightly different, slightly out there, and not exactly naturalistic. I thought I'd go for something slightly more experimental, as a form of playing with lights rather than trying to make lighting as real as possible, because that's not always the case, in some films. Sometimes it's just about being creative and different ways you can use your lights, as opposed to just sticking up 3 lights for 3-point lighting and stuff like that. So yes, this is my presentation. Thank you for listening, watching. Yeah.